Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now. I am Heena Gambhir. Amid rising day temperatures and heat wave in several parts of the country, there has been a surge in demand for electricity, prompting states like Punjab, Uttar Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh to cut off power supply. Surge in electricity demand is not just due to early onset of peak summer season, but also due to reopening of industrial activity and shortage of railway rakes to transport coal. Due to shortage of coal in thermal plants, 8-hour blackouts are being reported. You heard me right. Blackouts for almost 8 hours are being reported in different parts of the country. From industries to small businesses to Aam Aadmi, everyone is getting impacted due to frequent and long power cuts. And it's only the month of April. Coal accounts for 70% of India's electricity generation, and power plants in India having low supplies of coal is not a new phenomenon. This happens almost every year during the peak summer season. But this year, the peak summer season is yet to come. Like I said, it's only the month of April that we're talking about. This year, experts feel the situation is quite bad and may get worse in the days to come. States like Maharashtra, Gujarat and Tamil Nadu, three of India's most industrialized states, accounted for nearly a third of India's electricity demand in 2021. And they have been hit very hard this year. In fact, in the first fortnight of April 2022, domestic power demand reportedly hit a 38-year high. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister MK Stalin today has written to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, raising concerns over shortage of coal in the state. He has urged Prime Minister Modi to ensure the supply of 72,000 tons of coal per day for uninterrupted power supply. On the other hand, Maharashtra's Deputy Chief Minister Ajit Pawar has blamed the centre for shortage of coal in the state. Maharashtra government has decided to import coal to deal with the crisis. Listen in. Okay, we'll get you those reactions in just a bit. So the question that we're asking tonight is, should Indian cities brace for more blackouts? Are we staring at a power crisis? Let's go across to my guest joining us on the broadcast this evening. We have with us Rajiv Agarwal, Secretary General ICPPA, P. Rathnakar Rao, Secretary General of All India Power Engineers Federation, Dr. Sumant C. Raman, political analyst, Gopal Krishna Agarwal, national spokesperson of the BJP, also live with us on the broadcast this evening. Good evening to all of you. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now this evening. Mr. P. Rathnakar Rao, I want to begin the discussion with you. You know, it's not unusual really to see power cuts during the summer season, during the peak summer season specifically, because that's when we see electricity demand shooting up. But this year, why is the situation looking so bad that experts feel that this is just going to get worse?
Yeah, good evening. Yeah, yes, it is true that in every summer there will be power shortage and normally power cuts will be there in many of the states. But this year is quite different because the last 2 years we have suffered with COVID and the industries, particularly they are not operating at full extent. The power demand didn't shoot up. But recently, after this COVID, where normalcy is restored, all the industries, they have started functioning, especially manufacturing industries. So this has resulted in a surge of power demand apart from the rising temperatures. So on early summer is also one reason for rising temperatures and also running of air conditioners in domestic homes. It is the main reason for both the industry activities resumed to full extent and the summer temperatures have shoot up. So this is the main reason. Coupled with this, we have India is mostly dependent on thermal generation, which is we fuel as the coal supply. So coal supply is not to the full extent. As per the norms we should have at least 15 to 24 days of coal stock in every thermal plant. But as of now, we have only 8 to 9 days of stock in every most of the power plants out of the 173 power plants. We have thermal generation. We have only around 90 to 100 power plants in shortage of coal. So every state is facing this power crisis. One is because of this coal shortage. The other is because of the surge in power demand this year.
Okay. And we are also now seeing state governments writing to the center for some sort of help this time. We will also be joined by Kamruzman Chaudhary, leader of the Congress party, in just a bit. But before that, Rajiv Agarwal, what is your understanding of the situation that the country is facing at this point in time? And it's not really usual that we see, this kind of power outage in the month of April.
Her bedside.
Could you unmute yourself?
Am I audible now?
Mr. Agarwal, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm audible now.
Yes.
Yeah. So I like to give a small statistics which will reveal how the hypocrisy is happening across the whole sector. As rightly pointed out earlier, like in 2020, the average coal stock was 28 to 30 days, as on say 1st April. In 21, it became 14.8 days across the India. And in Maharashtra, it was around 13.8, in Tamil Nadu, 12.5, in Andhra, it was 7 days, and Rajasthan, 3.8 days. So who's responsible for reducing this stock inventories? Now, from April 21 to April 22, of course, there is a reduction, say from 14 days to 9 days average. But on the contrary of, whatever power demand we are talking of, we are finding that the government virtually stopped or deferred coal supplies to industry for captive power generation, and that coal supply was given to government power plants and a lot of private power plants also. That amounted to almost 110, 120% of their contracted quantity with Coal India. Now, if we are not generating our own power, then definitely we have to switch to grid. Now that is again, adding to the woes which is already happening. I'm also
right.
I will also like to say that there is a long-term, problem happening. Everywhere we are talking of free power, we are talking of bad financials of state gencos and discoms. But there is one more factor which probably people don't discuss. That is whether the Indian power and coal is affordable for masses. See, there is a barometer called purchasing power parity for comparing across the globe different currencies. Now we are finding that coal and power is probably one of the highest bracket in the Indian cost of coal and power is in the highest bracket globally. Now, with that type of situation, definitely the losses are going to go up. I'll give you one small statistics. At Pithead, the coal cost for all the private, mining companies is around 350 to 500, 550 rupees. On that, Coal India says that their cost is around 1,300. Now, this historical inefficiency or cost efficiency, until unless that is taken care of, coal cost cannot come down. Another item is 400 rupees green cess, which is levied on this 400 rupees coal cost. That is almost 100%. On top of it, we add so many of taxes, etc.
Okay.
So coal, which could be sold at Pithead for say 400, 500, or maybe even after adding 25% profit at 600, 700 rupees, that is sold at 1,500 rupees to 30,000 rupees. Now, all this money is definitely spoiling the finances of state gencos and discoms. So this is something which has to be taken care of.
Interesting. You've actually raised Yeah, you've raised a number of issues here, and the most important one is that who is really responsible for reducing the stock inventory, because eventually it's the people in this country who are suffering. And today what we are seeing is states writing to the center to ensure uninterrupted coal supply because of the rise in power demand. Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, what is really happening? Because we've seen today Tamil Nadu Chief Minister MK Stalin writing to Prime Minister Modi asking for adequate supply of coal to meet the power demand. We've also seen Maharashtra's Deputy Chief Minister saying that, they'll have no option but to look at import of coal. Why are we seeing this kind of a situation in 2022?
We have to understand the power situation and the generation and distribution. The one thing that comes to my mind in every time when there is certain issues which is present in the state, they just start blaming the center for it. That's the easiest political way out for their own inefficiency and management. We know that the whole power ecosystem at present, which is mainly based on the DISCOM's financial health. The bad financial health of the DISCOMs is responsible for the situation in the power sector. They are not, I had been on the board of a power generation company. The states DISCOMs have not been paying amount for years and years to the power generation companies, and they want every time the power generation companies continue to go on supply the power. They are not able to, as Rajiv Agrawal ji said, that they are not able to maintain their stock of coal. They are not able to make payment, and this is because the mixing in our country about economics and politics. Economic decisions have to be taken on economic consideration. What Tamil Nadu or Maharashtra government is doing, that they are not working for reforms on their DISCOMs or proper their financial management or power generation, etc. Just simply they are playing the political game of blaming the center. The thing is, the power generation companies are private companies. Coal supplier companies have to work coal supply. Even the government had offered the coal blocks, etc. They have to manage it. It's a financial or an economic decision that the states have to take about themselves. And what is the center will see. And another thing I would like to mention here is, if you look into any genesis of any problem, you will find that the UPA government faulty policies in the last 10 years have been responsible for this. Earlier, the Supreme Court and the government had decided that we will auction the coal block.
You're holding UPA's policies responsible for what is happening today. We'll get the Congress leader to respond to what you're saying.
Let me finish just 10 more seconds. The problem was that the coal blocks allocation, there was huge corruption in the UPA. They had to be cancelled. So the whole system got derailed because of the corruption angle of the UPA. Otherwise, the coal block would have been auctioned properly. The companies which are generating coal power from the coal, they would have got the coal, and the supply would have been interrupted. DISCOM's financial health would have been strengthened. They would have to pay. They will not give freebies like the government in Delhi and Punjab are now doing. Give free power, don't pay to the companies.
Let's get the Congress leader on the panel to respond to that. Then I'll go across to Dr. Sumansi Raman as well. Mr. Chaudhary, how will you like to respond to what Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal had to say? Congress party is responsible for what is happening today. The political decisions that states are taking is the reason behind the crisis that is being faced.
No, let me respond, Mr. CV. Good evening to you, everybody out here. It's very easy to pinpoint a responsibility and blame the Congress government for the lapses of the current
Mr. Agarwal, let Mr. Chaudhary now respond, please.
No, but why is telling Nehru?
Mr. Agarwal, let Mr. Chaudhary now respond.
I didn't say Jawaharlal Nehru. I didn't say. Let me, Mr. Agarwal, please have the patience. Please have the patience.
Okay, gentlemen, please calm down, both of you, one at a time.
Yeah. Now, the point out here, it is very easy to pinpoint and blame for the lapses that the NDA government is running the show for the last 8 years. 8 years. Now, let me tell you, Maharashtra being one of the largest states, rather it is the largest in terms of finance, in terms of industry also. Not even a single coal mine is allocated to Maharashtra. Even our national president Sonia Gandhi ji had to request the Chhattisgarh government to allocate at least one coal mine to Maharashtra so that adequate coal is being generated out there for the power distribution, for power generation and distribution. Having said that, now let me tell you, Mr. Agarwal, please, I believe you believe in a civilized debate.
Okay, Mr. Agarwal, let him finish his point. I will give you time to respond as well. I will give you time, Mr. Agarwal.
The situation in Maharashtra
Mr. Agarwal, I will give you time to respond. I promise. Let him finish his point first.
There is such an acute shortage of coal in Maharashtra. I can just relate that to the shortage of oxygen during the COVID crisis. How stepmotherly treatment the NDA government was doing, or rather the BJP government was doing in allocation of oxygen to the different states. We all know that. Even in the allocation of coal also, the stepmotherly treatment to non-NDA states is visible right now out here in Maharashtra also. When you are generating the maximum revenue from Maharashtra, then they should be treated at par with their revenue. But no, you are not supplying coal to them. Who is taking away the coal then? That's the big question. Now these Adanis and Ambanis have taken control of all the coal mines in the country right now. They are handling the coal business. Of course, there was a problem with the Russia-Ukraine war, wherein the coal supply from Russia was hindered, and we could not supply the coal to the various distribution to the power generating companies. But then the failure of the NDA government in bringing up a energy roadmap for India for the next century is very much absent right now. When UPA entered into a civilian nuclear deal, these same people from BJP, they criticized the UPA government, saying that what was the need for the civilian nuclear deal. We need to have such type of alternate sources of energy. Madam, this is the right time. Although not everything is lost in India, we need to get our acts together and get into alternate sources of generation of energy. Second point that Mr. Agarwal was bringing out about
interesting the point, but a charge. Right, but interesting point you have made. Of course, we need alternate sources of energy, electricity generation. Another charge by you is of stepmotherly treatment to non-NDA states by centre. I'll get Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal to respond to that. But before that, let me go across to Dr. Sumansi Raman as well. You heard what the guests have said so far, Dr. Sumansi Raman. Do you also believe that it's this freebie culture, race to give free power by states to the people, and political decisions have led to poor financial health of DISCOMs, and that's the reason why we today are staring at some sort of power crisis in the country? Or do you think actually there is a shortage of coal in the country and it's not the result of mismanagement by states or by centre?
Heena, I think to be very honest, it is a question of mismanagement and political freebie culture that has led us to where we are. Now, there are two broad ways of looking at it. One is the immediate reasons for the immediate crisis. Now, unfortunately, I can't agree with Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal's that this is all because of what Congress did. And I'm glad he didn't blame Jawaharlal Nehru, because usually they have a tendency to blame Nehru for everything. But in this case, he has only blamed the UPA government. Look, 8 years is a long time to fix any issues that there may be. Right now, what is the problem? I don't think Mr. Agarwal has even read the letter that Mr. Stalin has written. He says that we have no railway rakes. The numbers which we require per day are 22. We now have only 14 rakes being allocated. So can the railways please allocate 8 additional rakes for Tamil Nadu to bring the coal? Now, this is purely a management issue. So there are multiple issues at here. One, reduced coal production. Second, the transportation issues and the bottlenecks that we are seeing in the transportation. and obviously the ability of the power plants, particularly the private sector power plants, to make payments, because they haven't been paid by the state electricity boards for years together. And I like Mr. Agarwal's talk about how profligate electricity boards are in opposition ruled states. He pointed out Maharashtra and Tamil Nadu and all that. In Uttar Pradesh, the power corporation loses 80 crores a day. What are we talking about? Before the election, they cut power tariff for farmers from 2 rupees a unit to 1 rupee a unit, right? So who is talking about freebie culture? Look, let us be honest. Most of the state electricity boards are broke. They are surviving purely because of government support, and without government support, they would not last a day. Privatization of the distribution network, which many states have promised, has not happened. They have backed off in fact, in several states, in fact, even in UP, it was one of the things which was sort of supposed to have happened. But again, there has been a backtracking on that. So the point is, there are multiple issues.
Right.
You cannot, there is no free lunch. At some stage, somebody will have to foot the bill for the profligacy and the gross mismanagement UPA plus NDA have done to the power sector over all these years. And that is the reason why we are where we are today. Short term, yes, probably there can be solutions which can be found at, importing a larger amount of coal, though the cost may be higher and so on. But those are purely like putting bandage on the wound. You still have to treat the infection. You still have to get the whole system back on track. And over the last few years, we have seen precious little commitment, except in terms of privatization of coal blocks and the coal auctions, coal block auctions. We've seen very little in terms of the power sector to say that there would be significant reforms at the state level.
Absolutely. And this is the reason why we are suffering today. The people of this country are suffering. They have to face power cuts at a time when the day temperature is close to 45 degrees Celsius in most parts of the country. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, quick response, then quick response by Mr. Chaudhary.
I have very close association with the power sector. I was on the board of one of the power generation company in the PSU. I have seen that the problem we should hit the problem at the nail. I'm not saying ki BJP or Congress. I am saying the problem lies at the DISCOM's financial health and the way they are operating, and the freebies are responsible for this. And what I'm talking about, politics of the state, is only Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra blaming center for that. They have to check them. UP is not blaming center. The thing is, the politics of blaming the center by the state is one politics. And the second thing is the health of the DISCOMs. They are not doing their service, financial health in a proper way. This is the biggest problem. The reforms are not taking place. Power grid has to be upgraded. There has to be a financial decisions on the economic aspect. So the politics come between. That is the real
bad
problem.
Political
here.
decisions you're reiterating
you are
are the reasons behind the problems that are being faced in various states and the DISCOMs.
Understand the economic side of it. Then only the solution will come.
Okay. Mr. Chaudhary wanted to come in one at a time. One second, Gopal Krishna Agarwal. I have very little time left on the debate, and I want to quickly go across to each of my guests. Yes, Mr. Chaudhary first, then Dr. Sumansi Raman.
Yeah, basically a very wonderful debate that you have organized today on the power sector. Yeah, basically the point that people out here are trying to drive home is the responsibility lies on the freebies, on the power that the various governments are doing. But one thing you must remember, it is not the freebies that is affecting the power sector alone. Freebies is there. It is a subsidy provided by the respective state governments and not by the power companies. Whatever they lose on the distribution network on the basis of freebies is being subsidized by the state government. So that argument does not hold out here. Secondly, whatever the policy that needs to be looked into. The networking of the grid, the interconnectivity of the various grid net of the power, that needs to be worked out into. These are some of the very important steps that the power sector needs to immediately implement right now. And blaming the UPA government for the misdeeds and for
reforms
the
clearly we all understand are
BJP
needed in the power sector. Dr. Sumansi Raman, very quickly, make your point.
My simple point is, Mr. Gopal Agarwal, 17 states ruled by BJP. Why not happen? Some of these states, BJP has been in power for decades. What are the reforms that BJP state governments have initiated? You said this is Congress. You said it is the UPA government.
BJP state, you don't blame the center for that.
17
don't blame center. Keep the blame to the Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra.
No, sir. Tamil Nadu needs railway rakes. Where will we go for railway rakes? Mr. Stalin has a point. He wants rakes, from the railways for transportation of coal that has been reduced.
And that's the reason why I did raise that point earlier. The transportation of coal is another reason why this crisis is there in front of us. I want to give the last word now to Rajiv Agarwal. What can be done immediately? Because, it's impacting each one of us and we really don't want power cuts, blackouts for close to 8 hours. Can something be done immediately to fix this problem by both center as well as the states?
See, today it is not only, it's a far cry to my mind, because as of now, industry and captive generation itself is suffering. Like if I give you small statistics from June 2021, rakes have not been moved to industry and captive power generation. These people are also forced to buy from the grid. So ultimately, you are loading the grid. Now, since I'm not a political person, I'm only a technical person. But here I'm just observing again that Tamil Nadu had only 19 days stock in 2020, while the national average was 28 days. So there is something. Let's not talk about politics. Let us try to strengthen each and every state system. And there has to be a balance between power cuts and continuity of operation of the industries. Today, I can say with confidence that lot many industries are operating, incurring huge loss just for the sake that if they stop, the imports will start coming into India. And once that import comes, it will be next to impossible to push them back, because our cost of production, because of high coal cost and high power cost, we cannot compete globally. And I'll just stop at that.
All right. I think what you've said is very, very important. If politics takes over, then the crisis is going to continue. So we really need some immediate solutions, maybe better coordination between center and states on this very, very crucial issue, because import of coal, of course, is not going to be the only solution here, considering how the coal prices are also quite high in the international market. Thank you very much, all of you gentlemen. Appreciate you joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now this evening.